For this week's Smith Business Close-Up, we are on location here at the University of Maryland. Our guest is Sean Barnes, an assistant professor in the Department of Decision, Operations, and Information Technologies. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
We want to focus on free agent bargains in baseball. What's an academic looking for here?
Basically, we're looking to leverage analytic models to improve decision making. And so one of the great things about sports is that there's so much data available. We can really try to apply the methods that we're very familiar with and use it in a real setting that people will get excited about.
The shorthand for this that people might be familiar with is Moneyball, the name of a book that was written a while back. Is that how you think about it?
Yeah, more or less. The basic idea is teams would like to spend money as efficiently as possible. So they want to avoid the bad deals, and hopefully they get lucky and they get some good deals along the way as well. So the basic idea follows the spirit of Moneyball. We're focused explicitly on free agent contracts, so there's a little bit of difference, but the general idea is the same.
This is especially important in baseball, where there's no salary cap, and you have some teams from big markets, Yankees, who can spend freely, and teams from smaller cities that have to be a little bit more careful.
Yeah, that's right. We like to view our approach as being appropriate for all teams, right? So even though the Yankees can afford higher salaries, they can even afford to pay players more than other teams, they still want to spend money efficiently, and they don't want to be saddled with these expensive contracts over the long term.
How thoroughly has this ground been plowed before? So the concept of Moneyball's been around for a while. There have been some success stories. What's new in your research?
Yeah, so I think the Moneyball idea came from the fact that people were looking for inefficiencies in the market, particularly with respect to a single statistic like on-base percentage. So we're looking at it a little more of a holistic point of view, where we're trying to incorporate all player statistics and actually try to figure out if there's ways to identify players that have excess value relative to their market value.
And baseball, you were telling me, is particularly fertile ground because of the deep statistics that are out there.
That's right. So baseball tends to be the most mature sport in terms of just the data that's being collected, and so there's a lot more available out there. And also we get to see that teams are utilizing this information more so than other sports have gotten to that point yet.
How seriously do the teams themselves take this?
It varies by team. So you'll find that there are certain teams, ESPN actually does a survey of this, and they evaluate the maturity of teams with respect to their analytics programs. So you'll find teams at one end of the spectrum that are very mature, and they actually incorporate this into their decision making, and you'll find other teams that have been a little resistant to the movement.
So teams that are maybe still thinking about it in analog terms, what the scouts say, as opposed to what the numbers say.
Yeah, so they might study, they might even have a small analytics department, but the gap is that they're not yet incorporating the analytics into their decision making.
Are there some big winners or losers that stick out for you, contracts that were just huge winners or gigantic mistakes?
Yeah, so the challenge is you'd like to highlight these players early in their careers. So one thing that we found that our models were pretty good at detecting are players who are on the verge of superstardom, right? So some examples of that include like Ichiro Suzuki when he first came over to the U.S., or more recently a player like Andrew McCutchen. We were able to identify that those players had excess value in terms of their future performance relative to what their market value is. On the other hand of the other side of the coin, we were pretty easily identified players, maybe like Ryan Howard, who has a very expensive contract for the Phillies, who has not been able to meet the expectations set by his contract.
Are there applications for your research outside of baseball or even outside of sports more broadly?
Yeah, so this gets into this new kind of new field focused on HR analytics. Can you identify future employees and how well they're going to do? The advantage that we have in sports is that we just have a lot more data that we can use to train these models and evaluate them. I don't think we're quite there on the personnel side of things.
Very good. Professor Sean Barnes joining us here at the Smith School of Business. Thank you for your time.
All right, thanks. Thanks for having me.